Helima, is anybody talking sense to the Saudis and the Russians?
I think what's really interesting today is we got reports that President Trump was going to pick up the phone and actually phone Vladimir Putin. So much of the talk has been on what the U.S. can do to get the Saudis to basically cut production. But I really think the path to a production cut deal that could help save this market goes through Moscow. It was the Russians who said they weren't going to cut production at the last OPEC meeting. And I think they are absolutely essential to putting this whole OPEC plus arrangement back together. Again, so much emphasis has been on Saudi Arabia, but it's very interesting today that President Trump is phoning Moscow.
What's the president's leverage?
Well, I think the interesting question is, will the U.S. or will the White House want to give some sweeteners to Moscow in terms of sanctions relief? The U.S. has imposed sanctions on key Russian energy companies such as Rosneft. We've basically sanctioned the Nord Stream 2 pipeline project. And so the question is, will the president give some relief on sanctions to get the Russians to agree to cut production? I think that's a potential path to an early deal. No guarantees, but I don't think we get a big grand bargain unless Russia is willing to participate.
So the headline is that these two countries are engaged in a price war between each other. But
yes.
Are either of them the ultimate targets of this price war, or are our producers the ultimate targets?
That is a great question, because at the OPEC meeting where everything fell apart at the beginning of the month, it was really clear that the Russians were targeting U.S. production. It was a standpoint of the Russian companies like Rosneft that they should not have to shut down their barrels first. That the U.S. companies, the high-cost U.S. producers, they should be the ones to blink. And also the Russian companies were tired of sanctions on their business practices. So they are squarely focused on the United States. Now, the Saudis are very focused on the Russians. They're trying to get the Russians back to the table. Hence why the deal that might make this all work would be a U.S.-Russia deal, in my view.